A key hearing is set to take place on Friday related to a federal lawsuit filed by current and former members of Congress, in which they argue they were unconstitutionally underpaid and thus deserve back pay. Here to break down all of this is the Hill's courts and legal reporter, Zach Schonfeld. Zach, thanks so much for joining us. To start, can you explain this lawsuit for us, who's involved, what both sides are arguing, and the legal questions at the center of it?
Hey, Judy, if you're ever asked at bar trivia what is the most recent amendment to the Constitution, the answer is the amendment that says that Congress can't change its pay until after the next election. And that amendment, the 27th Amendment that was passed back in 1992, is what is at the center of this lawsuit. This lawsuit filed by a group of current and former members of Congress from both parties, arguing that for years they've been underpaid every time that Congress has voted to decline to give itself the annual cost of living increases that would automatically be applied to their paychecks, just like it is for an ordinary civilian employee who works for the government. So now they are arguing to a judge on Friday at the Court of Federal Claims that they are entitled to back pay. Meanwhile, on the other side of the case will be the federal government, the Justice Department. Originally, it was the Biden administration. Now the Trump administration has taken over defending this case, and they will argue the judge has no authority to intervene. And they also just point out the fact that these lawmakers are effectively arguing that votes that they took while in office were unconstitutional. And this really, Judy, seems to be the rare case where this whole battle could have been solved. Congress did something here, and this whole battle could have been solved if they had just done nothing.
I bet you are a formidable trivia opponent, Zach. How does the hearing on Friday tie into all of this?
Yeah, to set the stage for Friday, let's talk about what's already been decided, because this case has been going on for some time. The judge has already ruled that some of these claims can't move forward. Beyond the salary increases, these lawmakers had originally been arguing that they were entitled to increased retirement benefits and all of that. The judge has said he has no authority to intervene on that. That's got to go before specialized bodies. He's also said that there's a statute of limitations that applies here. The lawmakers can't sue for back pay earlier than 2018. In fact, there were some lawmakers originally involved in this case who have been long out of office and are not going to be part of this hearing on Friday because they don't have any relevant claims here. But the bottom line here is these lawmakers are going to be arguing, making the case for back pay stretching back to 2018. And just to give you an idea of the numbers here, right now, the salary for a member of Congress, if you're a rank and file member, is $174,000. If these lawmakers win this motion and get their way in court, that would mean that automatically lawmaker salary rates right now would have to go all the way up to $253,000. So quite a jump here, Judy.
Yeah, Zach, I have to say it's striking that at a time in which polls show Americans are more concerned about affordability, you have current members of Congress, such as Representatives Rick Crawford and Jim Clyburn, arguing they deserve more money when their current pay already puts them at, according to rough estimates, the 89th percentile of all Americans. Has there been any comment from Crawford or Clyburn or any concern about the optics of this lawsuit?
As you might imagine, Judy, we haven't heard a lot from the lawmakers themselves. In fact, there's no requirement that they even themselves show up to court tomorrow. It may just be their attorneys. There's not going to be cameras in the courtroom tomorrow, so we don't expect this to be a made-for-TV event. This really has been happening, with not a whole lot of attention, and I don't think the lawmakers necessarily are going to be the most upset about that because of exactly the public dynamics that you point out, Judy. And the other thing here that you alluded to is that this is not just Republicans or just Democrats. This suit involves lawmakers of both parties. You mentioned Rick Crawford there, a Republican from Arkansas, who says that he's owed about $566,000. There's one other Republican, Rodney Davis, former representative from Illinois. But as you mentioned, Judy, we've also got several members here who formerly were in House Democratic leadership who are going to be part of this case. That involves Steny Hoyer and Jim Clyburn. They both argue that they're entitled to $792,270 in back pay. And one other thing I just point out here, since you mentioned the public dynamics of all this, one interesting thing to me in this lawsuit is that Jim Clyburn and Steny Hoyer were not originally part of it. They have only joined on to the lawsuit later on. Now, they were allowed to do so. The judge granted them the right to do so. But it's interesting to me, given all of the public dynamics of this, that they didn't join this at the onset.
Yeah, it does seem to be flying under the radar to a degree. What will you be keeping an eye on, Zach, as this case develops moving forward?
It really is the fact that this is just not the lineup that you're used to seeing in some of these, politically charged cases and that are more ideological. This is really one where you're going to have on one side of the courtroom tomorrow, you're going to have the Justice Department, what is now the Trump administration, what at one point was the Biden administration. And then on the other side, you're going to have these attorneys for a bipartisan group of Democrats and Republican lawmakers. And I would point out also the fact that those lawmakers' attorney is going to be none other than Ken Cuccinelli, who served in a key role in the Department of Homeland Security under the first Trump administration. Someone we used to talk about a lot in the news back during the first Trump era, not as much so much anymore, but make no mistake, he will be one of the lawyers front and center in this case tomorrow.
Zach Schonfeld, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.